My client is suing a psychic. Welcome to the Case Doctors. For negligent misrepresentation after following stock market advice with John Simon and Alvin Wolf, given during a live-streamed seance. The show where two of the greatest legal minds offer you advice on your cases.
Are you making this up?
The Case Doctors. We'll see you now. Welcome to the Case Doctors. I'm your host, Christine Byers of Simon Law, and I'm joined by the Case Doctors, John Simon and Alvin Wolf. Now, between them, they have more than 80 years of experience as plaintiffs' attorneys. So there really isn't a scenario that they haven't already encountered on a case and figured out how to handle it or how not to handle it. Now they're offering you the chance to tell them about the various problems or issues that are coming up in your cases and hear how they would handle it. But first, let's turn to some of the civil cases making headlines and hear what the Case Doctors have to say about them. A Massachusetts man has alleged in a lawsuit filed in federal court that Wells Fargo intentionally concealed a trust fund account from him for decades while he suffered years of financial instability, including homelessness. The client was supposed to start getting benefits from the trust fund when he turned 21 in 1995. But despite years of searching, he only learned where the account was held shortly after his grandmother died more than 25 years later. Again, do you think Wells Fargo has a chance here?
Well, I'm just thinking of all the interest that he's earned on that money in the last 24 years. He might be in a better financial position today than he otherwise would have been.
I'd want to know how much was in the corpus of the fund to begin with.
Yeah.
Does it tell you that? I mean, if it was $10,000 and he says he's homeless because of that, I don't think he's got a very good case.
Or 20 for that matter.
Or 30.
So it says here the client's grandparents first set up the trust fund in the 1970s, initially funding it with $25,000.
Probably got a decent sum in there.
Well, in the 80s and 90s, they were paying some pretty good interest.
Yeah, so you know what, though? I still say he's 21 and he's homeless for the last 20 years. It sounds to me like if he would have gotten that money back when he was supposed to get it, probably all would have been gone pretty quick. I'm not condoning, Wells Fargo's conduct. I mean, we're sort of making light of it, but, if they didn't give it to him, if they didn't let him know that he had the trust money available, they're kind of on the hook, right?
Oh, I think so. But it sort of reminds me of the Big Lebowski when Lebowski was talking to Jeff Bridges and said, "Get a job, sir."
So he is now seeking damages under Massachusetts consumer protection laws and the Federal Electronic Fund Transfer Act, as well as for breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, conversion, and unjust enrichment. Some more allegations. The defendants also withdrew fees for holding the account, which plaintiffs said is a similar practice to what ultimately led to a $3 billion B with a B settlement with regulators in 2020 over the bank's alleged creation of accounts without customers' knowledge.
I think $3 billion is a little bit high for him to be, thinking about $3 billion in that case under those facts. A little on the high end.
Might be enough to get him a one-bedroom apartment.
Another hot topic we have is the Google LLC and its YouTube subsidiary saying they have reached a settlement to resolve a long-running proposed class action, accusing them of illegally collecting children's data to generate targeted advertising after a California federal judge refused to release the companies from the dispute earlier this year. In the joint notice filed Friday, the parties informed the court that they had agreed to a class-wide settlement in principle to resolve the litigation being pressed on behalf of a group of children under 13 who have watched videos on YouTube and accused the video sharing platform and its parent of privacy and state consumer protection law violations through misappropriation of their data without parental consent.
I think that's terrible, and I think they should get whacked. They're using data from minors they're enticing the minors into the online to watch what they're putting out there, and then they're taking that data of who's watching it, the kids, the minors, and then either selling that or using that in some other manner.
Well, that would be under the parent's account, though. If you get on YouTube, aren't you signing in under someone's account? and it's not likely that kids would have it. My grandchildren watch these YouTube videos like they're mesmerized.
These companies have the ability to, screen minors, and they know when minors are using and getting online versus, adults, and they have the technology to prevent that from happening. But here, I think this is a little bit different because aren't you saying that they took minor information and then what, sold it? Or benefited, put it out there to benefit from it in some way, some financial way.
Well, so what are they going to do? They're going to watch a kid watching a Lego movie and sell it to Kellogg's, so Kellogg's will come after them and try to get them to buy Sugar Smacks?
Yeah, or worse, to other people who are searching for children online or something like that. I mean, who knows? I hope that there's some, what's it called?
Accountability?
Not just accountability, but some remedial measures that can be taken to prevent it. In other words, to have them stop doing what they're doing or prevent it from happening in addition to the monetary payment.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Time now to turn to our email inbox for the cases our viewers have sent us for the case doctors to diagnose. Now, just so everyone knows, we are not going to reveal where these cases came from. We're not going to name any names or firms to protect the confidentiality of these cases. Instead, the case doctors are going to focus on just the issue in each of them. So as they say, the case doctors will see you now. All right, this one is to the case doctors. My client is suing a psychic for negligent misrepresentation after following stock market advice given during a live-streamed seance. The psychic claimed to channel Warren Buffett's spirit, who is very much alive.
Are you making this up?
All right, here we go. The psychic claimed to channel Warren Buffett's spirit, who is still very much alive, by the way, leading to a catastrophic investment. Do you think I should approach this as a financial fraud via an astrology app? Or how do I better argue the case despite the lack of a traditional fiduciary duty?
There
you go, John.
We need a psychic to tell us how that one's going to come out.
I think you would use a Ouija board.
I mean, a lot to unwrap on that, I guess.
It's like getting bad advice from anybody. Anyone ever tell you go buy the stock and you buy it and it goes straight down?
Yeah.
Very rarely does it go up.
Warren Buffett just retired, by the way, at 95.
He did.
95.
And my Berkshire Hathaway stock has really been a good investment.
Yeah. It has.
And I'm not giving stock advice today.
Did you know that the car that he drives is like 25 years old? He drives through the McDonald's for breakfast in the morning, and he still lives in the house that he and his wife bought 50 years ago.
Yep. In the 1970s.
In Omaha, in Nebraska, 60 years ago. Yep.
Fascinating
amazing.
guy.
Yeah.
So here's another one. Hi, John and Alvin. I need your guidance on a sensitive issue. I recently finalized a settlement in one of my cases, but I did so before obtaining explicit consent from my client. I understand this may raise ethical and legal concerns, and I want to make sure I take the right next steps to address the situation properly. Have you ever encountered anything like this, or do you have thoughts on how best to proceed in terms of disclosure, possible remedies, and mitigating potential fallout?
Let me ask you this. Do you ever send out a demand letter asking for policy limits?
Yes.
Do you always ask permission from your client before you do that?
I would hope so.
That's an interesting question, because if I have a case where I'm asking for a lot of money, I'm going to run that by my client. But let's say there's a case with a $100,000 policy. I don't know if I necessarily ask for permission before I do it. I may do it first and then tell the client what I did, and they always say okay.
So what I do is something close to that, but what I'll do, especially if I know the attorney on the other side, and it's a case where it's a limits case, what I'll do is I'll confirm with them if you send me confirmation that there's no more policy limits, or the policy limits as represented or it. I tell them I will recommend it to my client, and I'm pretty sure they're going to follow my recommendation, especially if there's no more coverage. But I mean, the safest thing always is to get permission. I don't necessarily put it in writing. I talk to them, and even in the bigger cases with the numbers, I have a conversation with them all the time. But I don't always put it in writing. But I really can't remember a situation where I would make a a formal demand for any amount of money without having, without having talked about it with my client. But I don't think that's what this person's already, that's already done.
They
right?
settled the case and they
settled
didn't
the
have
case,
permission.
Right. Honesty is the best policy. Whatever happened, come clean, talk to your client. If you got a good relationship with your client, if they trust you, if you did a good job for them, I think all of those things, will all those things will help you get it resolved. But number one, be honest with your client. Talk to them. Say, hey, look, there's a policy limit. Here's what it is. Give why you gave it, and you didn't make that demand unless you thought it was a good demand for the case. And see, you got to tell them I made the demand, and it was accepted, and I didn't get your consent. And I don't know, Alvin. I'm kind of digging myself a hole here. What do you think? Don't you need to tell them? I mean,
so yesterday I had a situation where I told the client, I'm going to get your policy limits. And he said, okay. He's 22 years old. Mm-hmm. Today his mother calls me up. What are you doing?
Yeah, no
Why
policy
are you doing
limits.
this?
Yeah.
What did we need you for?
Right, yeah.
And it's like, okay, I always precipitate these demands, though, if it's going to be a policy limits case where I'm carving out the ability to not release the Missouri Tort Victims Claim
Yes,
Fund.
yeah.
Because that has to be in the release. Because if you just sign a general release, you're also releasing the fund.
Right.
I think the guy that did this gets on his knees and begs for forgiveness. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is you have to explain what the circumstances or the situation is about getting more. Is it a situation where the demand was the policy limits, and based on the circumstances, that's pretty much all the person's ever going to get? But still, you need to, I'm not helping him by telling him you need to clear it with your client ahead of time, because he obviously didn't do that.
He skipped that step.
Yeah, skip that step. But whatever it is, anytime you did anything, whether it's a mistake or did something without thinking, whatever, always come clean and do it sooner rather than later. Yeah, beg for forgiveness. I had one when I was very early in my career, and it was a family sad case that lost a family member. It was a wrongful death case, and there were some fairly high policy limits. We did a ton of work on the case. We filed it, took depositions, and we were at a mediation. And it was a situation where the policy limits, the insurance was pretty much going to be it. There weren't going to be any collection beyond insurance. And so we walked out of that mediation after a full day not making a demand for the policy limits. And it wasn't offered, but we didn't make it. And the mediator then, who I knew very well, called me and said, hey, what's going on? And I said, look, if you want to offer something, offer it, because they're just not going to let me make a policy limit demand. So they offered something that was about 90% of the policy limits on the phone. So I took one at a time, called all of my clients. They were all adults, and talked to them and said, I highly recommend this, because you got there's always risk. You're going to have to try it. You're not going to do any, you're risking this amount of money. Tried to give them the best advice I could, and they all said no. Because I'd call one of them, and then they'd call each other before I talked to them, and by the time I got to the end of the line, they were like, ain't happening. We're not gonna do that, but we will take the policy limits. So I called the mediator back and said they won't do that, but they'll take the policy limits. 20 minutes later, he said, yep, you got it, policy limits. So fast forward, we're getting everybody together to go get it approved in my office. And one of the clients came out and said, hey, you did a really good job on the case. We're all happy that you did it and thankful. But we don't think you should take a fee on the last, amount, because we think we got that, not you. Okay.
Really?
And I got along with him great, and I started laughing, and I said, well, let me ask you this: if they would not have paid that, okay, and we would have turned down 90% of the policy limit, and we tried it and got half of that, would my fee still be the same? I said, we're kind of in this together. So anyway, I didn't reduce my fee on the last portion, but I thought it was interesting,
Hey, nice try.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, nice try, but I said we're all either going up or down together. We're all doing this together, and so but I think, this person's going to feel a lot better.
Okay, gentlemen, that will do it for this episode of The Case Doctors. If you have a case that you would like the Case Doctors to dissect, send us an email at cases@thecasedoctors.com. And here's a QR code that will take you directly to our contact page. Once again, we will be keeping all names and cases confidential. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on The Case Doctors.